Is this the best braided fishing line on the market? Okay, here we're testing reaction tackle, 20-pound braided fishing line. There's a lot of different factors that go into testing fishing line. But the very first test it has to pass is this is rated a 20-pound braided fishing line. So this 20-pound braided fishing line, this meter has to reach at least 20 pounds. That's the first step. Orange fishing bead represents the first test of dry fishing line. We're going to test 3 dry, 3 wet, and then we're going to check abrasion. 3 dry, 3 wet. So here we go with the first test. Test 1, dry 1. Okay, here you see the first test of reaction tackle, 20-pound braided line. Reached 23.1 pounds of tensile strength. So that's a pass. Okay, we're doing a second test of the dry braided fishing line, represented by the green fishing bead. Reaction tackle, 20-pound braided fishing line. Here we go, test 2, dry braided fishing line. The second test of the dry braided fishing line reached 22.0 pounds of tensile strength. So that's a pass. Reaction tackle. Okay, here you can see we're doing the third test of 20-pound braided fishing line by reaction tackle. Here we go with the third test represented by the blue fishing bead. Dry braided fishing line, 20 pounds. Okay, here you can see the third test reached 20.5 tensile strength. So that's a pass. So the first 3 tests of dry braided fishing line, the tensile strength was all higher than 20 pounds. That's rated on the label. So far, reaction tackle's doing pretty good. We tested 3 rigs dry braided fishing line. Now we're moving on to the wet braided fishing line. We've been soaking 3 rigs for at least 2 hours. The fishing beads run in the same colors, orange, green, blue. Here you see I already set up the orange. Here's the other rig soaking. There's the blue. And there's the green. Here we go with the second set of tests. Reaction tackle, 20-pound braided fishing line. Orange fishing bead represents the first test of the wet braided fishing line. So let's see how this does. Test wet 1 reached 24.2 pounds of tensile strength. So that did even better than a dry. Remember, we're testing 20-pound braided fishing line. So that looks really good. Move on to test 2. Okay, here we go with test 2 of the wet braided fishing line, represented by the green fishing bead. 20-pound reaction tackle braided fishing line. That has been soaking in this jar for over 2 hours. Okay, let's go with test 2, wet. Okay, test 2 of the wet braided fishing line, 20-pound braided fishing line from Reaction Tackle, reached a tensile strength of 19.6 pounds. Here we go with test 3, represented by the blue fishing bead. Reaction Tackle, 20-pound braided fishing line. In order for this fishing line to pass, this meter has to reach at least 20 pounds to start with. Here we go. Test 3 of the wet braided fishing line by Reaction Tackle did good at 22.3 pounds of tensile strength.
There we go. Oh, not on a pole. Can't get tangled in a pole. Oh my goodness. I'm gonna lose him. He's gonna wrap around the pole. There he goes. It's gonna break.
Now we're going to be testing for abrasion resistance. Here we have 3 rigs set up for the dry test on this actual structure you will find in your favorite fishing spot. So we're going to do 3 dry. After we test the dry, we're going to come over and test these wet fishing rigs that have been soaking for at least 2 hours for abrasion resistance. Is it running?
Yes, it is.
Wow, look at that baby.
Dude, it's huge.
All right, get a couple pictures, landscape. Now we're going to be testing the abrasion resistance on Reaction Tackle braided fishing line. And here you can see that we do not use sandpaper. We use some of the structure that you will actually find around bridges, docks, and piers. This is called riprap, and this is what they use to prevent erosion around these spots. We got 3 dry rigs over here. I'm soaking 3 wet rigs right here. Here we go with test 1 of the 20-pound braided Reaction Tackle fishing line. Testing for abrasion resistant. This is the dry fishing line represented by the orange fishing bead. Down and up is 1 cycle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 cycles, that's really good. That's the best we've seen. 6 cycles on test 1 of the dry braided fishing line by Reaction Tackle. Here we go with test 2 of the dry braided fishing line represented by the green fishing bead. Testing abrasion resistance by some of the same structure that you will find at your favorite fishing spot. Down and up is 1 cycle. Okay, test 2 represented by the green fishing bead. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 cycles, that's pretty good. 4 cycles on test 2. Here we go with test 3 of the dry braided fishing line abrasion test, represented by the blue fishing bead. Down and up is 1 cycle. If I see 3 cycles on this very sharp structure, I'm very happy. Okay, here we go with test 3 of the dry braided fishing line abrasion resistant test. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 3 cycles, that's pretty good. Now remember, we're not testing with sandpaper. So when you're testing with sandpaper, some of these guys are getting 20, 25 cycles. We're testing with real structure. Sharp rock. This is called riprap. Now you got to imagine that fish bites and you yank on that rod and he dives into the rock. You should be able to get him out within 2 or 3 pulls of the rod while you're working that reel. So 3 cycles is okay. Now we're going to test the wet braided fishing line that's been soaking for over 2 hours. Okay, as always, we tested orange, green, blue. This is test 1 of the wet braided fishing line abrasion resistant test. Down and up is 1 cycle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 cycles on the first test of the wet braided fishing line. 5 cycles is very good. Here we're doing a second test of wet braided fishing line abrasion resistant test, represented by the green fishing bead. Down and up is 1 cycle. Here we go. 1, 2. Here we go. 1, 2. 2 cycles on that one. Now we're going to do the third abrasion test on this 20-pound braided fishing line by reaction tackle. 20-pound braided fishing line. This has been soaking for over 2 hours in this mason jar. And after we're done these tests, we're going to go over the results. I'm going to tell you what I think about this fishing line, and you can tell me what you think about the fishing line. The third abrasion resistant test, wet fishing line, represented by the blue fishing bead. Five, 6, 7, 8, 9. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 8 cycles. Now that's really good. So far, of all the line I tested, on this actual structure you're going to find around your favorite fishing spot, 8 cycles is the best I've had. Let's do a quick review on this reaction tackle 20-pound braided fishing line. The first 3 tests we did here were a dry tensile strength of this fishing line. Test 1 was 23.1, test 2 was 22.0, and test 3 was 20.5, for an average of 21.8. So this is 20-pound braided fishing line. So this is definitely a pass on this. On test 2, we soaked the fishing line for over 2 hours, and we tested the tensile strength. The first test was 24.2, second test was 19.6, and the third test was 22.3, for an average of 22.0 tensile strength. So the average of all 3 did really good on this 20-pound braided fishing line. So we're giving that a pass. Third, we did a dry abrasion resistant test. And we did that on some of the actual types of structure you will find at your fishing spot. Test 1 went 6 cycles, test 2 went 4 cycles, and test 3 went 3 cycles, for an average of 4.3 cycles. When I'm testing abrasion resistant tests on the actual types of structure you'll find at your fishing spot, like sharp rocks, anything above 3, in my book, is a pass. So this averaged out at 4.3 cycles of the dry abrasion resistant test. So that did really well. Finally, we did the abrasion test on the wet braided fishing line that we soaked for 2 hours. Test 1 was 5 cycles, test 2 was 2 cycles, and test 3 was 8 cycles, for an average of 5 cycles. Once again, anything over 3 cycles is definitely a pass on this scale. So that's a pass. So finally, do I think this is good fishing line or bad fishing line? I think this is really good fishing line, and I think you can trust this fishing line. Before you buy your next spool of fishing line, you need to see this. In this next video, I test fishing line that claims to be stronger. If you're serious about not losing fish or wasting money, click this video right now. Don't risk your next big catch on a guess.